I'm Melody Jones. With the recent release of Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, a new wave of controversy has arisen surrounding the ethics of true crime. Particularly, true crime dramas like Dahmer tend to sensationalize tragic events involving real people, often without their knowledge or consent. Despite its moral quandary, true crime is a consistently thriving genre. According to IndieWire, the Dahmer series topped Netflix's charts, gaining 162.9 million hours viewed in its first week of release. As it is now, true crime will be popular for years to come. But should it remain that way?
To answer this question, we at Sneak Peek first spoke to Professor Robert Quigley, who teaches a class on true crime media. He also produces Darkness, a true crime show created at the podcast production house he founded called The Drag. He reflects on why audiences, himself included, are attracted to true crime.
So fictional crime is nothing new. I mean, we've all read fiction crime books, we've seen fictional crime movies, and they're popular because it scares us. And so I think there's been a recent trend of taking true crime, which are, nonfiction and real people being affected, and trying to bring in that value and that entertainment by fictionalizing it and bringing in actors and dramatizing it more. And we're drawn to it because, we love basically really good fiction.
With Zac Efron as Ted Bundy and Evan Peters as Dahmer, true crime has the potential to uplift convicts to a celebrity-like status while disregarding the victims of high-profile crimes. Following the release of Dahmer, Rita Isbell spoke out against the series for recreating her emotional court testimony without her consent. Her brother, Errol Lindsay, fell victim to Dahmer's crimes, and the series resurfaced her feelings from the time of the trial. The millions of viewers who watch Dahmer won't see his crimes from the perspectives of the people it hurt the most. However, leaving such details out of the Dahmer series doesn't keep people from watching it. While Professor Quigley understands the intrigue of true crime stories, producing true crime is a task he doesn't take lightly.
I definitely started thinking about podcasts in a different way once we started making them. As a executive producer over podcasts, like sitting in on interviews with victims' families, talking with my students about how we want to carefully handle things, changed me as a consumer of podcasts as well, and definitely made me think this is something that we should have a discussion about in society and definitely in my class.
Senior journalism major Jackie Ibarra faces this challenge regularly as the host of Darkness, the Drag's true crime podcast. In 1989, UT student Mark Kilroy went missing on a spring break in Matamoros, Mexico. Ibarra handles his story with care, focusing on, as she puts it, the light that comes out of darkness.
I think it is super important to really ask, am I only doing this because it's a sensational story and because people are going to want to hear it, or is it more because there's so many things that were not told in the first place? In the case of Mark Kilroy, there was a lot of avenues that weren't explored as much as from what we saw. So I think in that case, we wanted to talk about yes, this true crime story happened, but look at this community that was there. Or look at the how faithful this family was.
Jen Broberg had her life on display in the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight, detailing the story of her two-time abduction. She revisits the events of her kidnappings in Peacock's drama miniseries A Friend of the Family. Broberg worked closely with Peacock to produce the adaptation of her very personal story.
If you can involve the survivor of that true crime story in your storytelling, and in your process, I think that is a great service because it will be more realistic, and they also have something to share involving, the victim of the crime or the survivor of the crime is really brilliant and really important. It just doesn't happen very often. I think people take the easy way out, or maybe the survivor just doesn't want to talk to anybody about it. But then their story gets told in a way that isn't probably completely true.
Fictionalizing a true crime story is a dangerous line to walk. However, it can be done appropriately, especially when those affected by the crime are involved with the show's production.
As shown by A Friend of the Family, having the approval or assistance from subjects of true crime can bring a whole new context to an old event, making for a unique and respectful retelling of their story. True crime creators should strive for this level of consideration moving forward, and audiences should do the same.
Before you click play on something, to just remember that it's a person and not just something for you to consume, not like a fictional character, someone who lived a life and lost a life.